three presenters present paper first. Then me and the discussion will do my work, you know, to have a comments. So let me introduce our discussant, Professor Titus Chen, who's from National Zhongshan University. Yeah, and me, I'm from Zhongzheng University in Jiayi, Political Science Department. And the first paper will be Zhang Wei-en. Yeah, he or she is she? Yes. Oh, she's a PhD student from Zhongxing University.
Yes.
Yeah, Institute of International Politics.
Yes.
Yeah, I hope she will show up.
In the toilet.
Oh, okay. Good. And the second paper will be presented by Ayu? Yes. Okay. I just call you Ayu. Okay. Ayu's paper is on Lancome and Mekong cooperation. And we will also have paper Christine's expert on Taiwanese politics and Myanmar politics. And she will discuss the China-Myanmar relations after the coup. So that's a real hot topic. And I think three of these papers also touch upon the important issue between China and ASEAN. But Chen is not here.
Maybe
yet.
we can change the...
So can we just exchange? Okay, then are you? Okay, are you? You can have 15 minutes of presentation. Okay.
And I'm going to sit over there so I can see better.
Can everyone hear me clearly? Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, all the distinguished professors, scholars, and participants. First of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Ayu, and I'm a student at International Master Program in Asia Pacific Studies, National Tsinghua University, Taiwan. And I would like to say thank you very much for this opportunity. It is truly an honor for me to participate in this great conference. And no need to waste more time. So today I would like to present my paper regarding the transboundary water management in the Mekong River from NOM approach. And with the title, Lancang-Mekong Cooperation as China's Strategy to Captain the Mekong River. So what inspired me to do this research is because the transboundary water management is getting important nowadays. Since transboundary water course has a unique characteristic that it doesn't recognize political boundaries, so it just travels through two or more states, and it often inflicts political tension and also cooperation among the parent countries. And in 2016, China initiated the establishment of Lancang-Mekong cooperations, and which can be regarded peculiar because prior to the establishment of Lancang-Mekong cooperation, there are already several multilateral mechanisms in the region. Let's say Mekong River Commission, but China refused to join the organization. Therefore, some scholars argue that the reason China initiated the Lancang-Mekong cooperation is because China wants to lead and control the Mekong River management, also in the Mekong region as a whole, and then to prevent external influence in the region. And this study questions how does China, through Lancang-Mekong cooperation, create the new norms of transboundary water management here in the Mekong River basin. And this study was conducted using qualitative research with text review method arguments are derived from secondary data such as articles, journals, books, government documents, available statistics, news, and websites. And before going deeper into the case, I would like to elaborate more about the transboundary water management that have been made. So, considering its significant importance, the riparian countries have created and signed some of agreements and treaties. For example, in 1814 and 1815, some of European countries have signed in the Treaty of Paris and also in the final act of Congress of Vienna to govern the navigational issue in some of international rivers in European continent. And then after that, in 1921, the League of Nations also stipulated Barcelona Convention also to govern the navigational issue, to provide regulation for navigational issue in international water course. But after that, several countries, riparian countries, they realized that international water course is not only about navigational issue, but also there are a lot of non-navigational issues need to be addressed, such as like food security and also energy security and climate change. Therefore, starting from 1966, the International Law Association issued the Helsinki Rules, which serve as international customary law, and after that, the principle embedded in the Helsinki Rules become the basis for other international conventions such as 1992 UN Water Convention and 1997 UN Water Course Convention. And this study also tried to extract the universal transboundary water management norms based on those international customary law and international conventions. There are the first one, there is to use or exploit the river in an equitable and a reasonable manner, and then the next one, not to cause significant harm, and to notify, consult, and negotiate with other riparian countries, and then to cooperate and exchange information, and the last one is to settle dispute in a peaceful manner. And what about the transboundary water management in the Mekong River? So, in the Mekong River, transboundary water management has been characterized by unilateral, bilateral, and multilateral approach. The unilateral approach can be seen in the policy of riparian countries. Then they develop hydropower projects in the respective country without, regardless of the objection from other riparian countries, such as in the case of Sayaburi Dam that was constructed by Laos government. So the Laotian government continued to construct this dam regardless of the strong opposition from Vietnam and Cambodia. And then also China has constructed numerous hydropower projects in the upper set of the Mekong River without the consent of downstream countries. And then bilateral approach can be seen in the cooperation among riparian countries that they cooperate with each other to import and export the electricity generated from the hydropower project. For example, Thailand and Vietnam, that they import the electricity from Laos. And then multilateral approach can be seen in the several multilateral mechanisms that have been established in the region. For example, Mekong River Commission, which was established in 1995 by lower Mekong countries. This is the sole international organization in the region, but it doesn't cover Myanmar and China because these two countries refused to join the organization. And MRC focused on balancing the need of development and also the sustainability of the river itself. And then the Greater Mekong Sub-region was established in 1992 with the assistance of Asian Development Bank. And this is an international organization, but it covers all the Mekong River riparian countries. And it focuses on development project and poverty alleviation in the region. And then there is, of course, Mekong Cooperation, which will be the main topic of the study. And it is also important to learn China's approach to the Mekong River prior to the establishment of LMC. So China has been reportedly to reject the UN Water Course Convention because this convention, China regards these conventions as violation for its sovereignty and also its right to exploit the natural resource in its own territory. And then also this convention has a provision that encourages all riparian countries to include the third party, for example, like international arbitration once they encounter dispute among riparian countries. And also for the same reason, China refused to be the member of MRC. And then, but China still cooperates with MRC, particularly on hydrological data sharing and as I mentioned before, the China has constructed the hydropower dams on the upper side of the Mekong River, and then China has been actively engaged in the GMS projects. And then the study also tried to make the linkage between the principle embedded in the Mekong Agreement with the universal norms of transboundary water management. And the study actually found that the Mekong countries, particularly lower Mekong countries, have incorporated the universal norms of transboundary water management into 1995 Mekong Agreement, but how does the implementation? So the study found that unfortunately in those Mekong countries have inadequately practiced the universal norms of transboundary water management, and the principle they already specified in the agreement, because downstream countries, particularly in the local societies, still experience adverse impact from the water flow diversion and also development projects along the river, and dams and reservoirs also have altered the natural flow of the Mekong River itself, and the region has been reportedly to lost a significant number of biodiversity they previously had in the river. So the study using non-subsidiarity theoretical framework, which was introduced by Amitabh Acharya. So this theory emphasizes the role of local actors in norm creation and norm diffusion in international system. So non-subsidiarity itself refers to the process when local actors, in this case third countries, that create rules with a view to preserving their autonomy from dominance, neglect, violation or abuse by more powerful central actors. But the study acknowledged that actually it's difficult to really categorize which country belongs to the third world countries, and also whether China still be regarded as third world countries. Therefore, the study emphasized their locality as this country as local actors, especially China, and they want to create the new norms that is more suitable for their interests. And the non-subsidiarity has 3 steps of process. The first one is states cognitive prior. The development of states cognitive prior, which is defined as the existing set of ideas, belief system, and norms which determine and condition an individual or social group's receptivity to the new norms. And cognitive prior is usually shaped by states' past experience, and then after that, because of this cognitive prior, the states tend to reject the existing norm, and then they start to formulate the new norms. So in the study also will follow these 3 steps. The first one will discuss about China's cognitive prior, and then this study states that China has refused to adopt the UN Water Course Convention, and the study will discuss how China forms the new norms through Mekong cooperation. So here on the discussion and findings, on the first step is China's cognitive prior. So China's cognitive prior is heavily influenced by China's past bad experience during the century of humiliation, started from the Opium War, when China was forced to sign unequal treaties between China and the Western and Japanese forces, and then after that, Chinese government tend to secure their nation by adopting the principle of non-interventions. Therefore, China rejected the 1997 UN Water Course Convention and also refused to join the MRC. And also, we have to acknowledge that there are foreign influences in the region, particularly from the United States and Japan, that they usually provide financial assistance for the Mekong 5 countries, which is actually all the Mekong riparian countries except China. Therefore, this reason also encouraged China to initiate the Lancang Mekong cooperation. And after learning how the LMC works, and from their declarations, the study found that the LMC is operated in a wide areas of cooperation, so it doesn't only focus on the sustainability of Mekong River, but also covering wide areas of cooperation such as education, agriculture, and even security. And this mechanism also promotes the principle of consensus, equality, mutual consultation, coordination, and respect for sovereignty and territorial integrity, and so on. And then most LMC programs are implemented through bilateral mechanism, with China as the main investor and also the leader. Even though actually LMC is multilateral cooperation, but it is operated through implemented through bilateral coordination. And then also the most important thing is LMC programs are aligned with China's mega project Belt and Road Initiative, which provide more space for China to give like special loans and also provide funds for downstream countries, especially for development purpose. And then this mechanism tends to separate the development cooperation and environmental conservation effort by establishing under mechanisms Lancang Mekong Environmental Cooperation Center or LMEC. And therefore there is a contradiction between LMC and LMEC program, because on the one hand LMC programs encourage development cooperation among the parent countries, but on the other hand the LMEC programs acknowledge that actually those development programs, particularly hydropower projects, have severe transboundary impact for the downstream countries. And unfortunately the existence and impact of the hydropower projects are not yet the focus of the LMEC, because based on my initial knowledge, the LMEC is still focusing on the impact of domestic and also industrial pollution from upstream countries to downstream countries. And then the study also has tried to extract the norms promoted by the LMC, and the study found that the norms promoted by the LMC are quite different with the universal norms of transboundary water management, because LMC doesn't only focus on the sustainability of the Mekong River itself, but it covers a wider area of cooperation. Therefore, the norms they promote also focusing on the cooperation itself rather than on the sustainability of the Mekong River. So for the conclusion, using the non-subsidiarity theoretical framework, the study found that states' past bad experience is actually shaping the today's state behavior and attitude toward international norms and also international regulations. And the study traces back to China's century of humiliation that influence how Chinese government today behave and also how their attitude toward international law. And then on the presence of American and Japanese influence in the region also has encouraged Chinese government to initiate the Lancang Mekong cooperations rather than joining the existing multilateral mechanism such as Mekong River Commission. And the study also found that through Lancang Mekong cooperation, China is increasingly influential in the region, because China can provide special loans and also funds for downstream countries, particularly for development projects. Therefore, it shows that there is like power parity between downstream and upstream countries, making the downstream countries such as like Laos, Myanmar, Cambodia, Thailand, and Vietnam getting more unable to challenge China's hydropower project because they are more reliable toward China's funds. That's my presentation. Thank you for listening.
Last one. You want to do the last one?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, okay. I think next will be Christina. You'll be the last. Okay.
Good.
Okay, good.
Okay, thank you very much for having me. I'm very excited to be back in Kaohsiung, where I actually studied at the Zhongshan Daxue. I graduated in 2016, and as I happen to be in Taiwan now for 2 months in Taipei, I had this opportunity to come, and I'm super excited to be here. So let me present my paper on China-Myanmar relations following the Myanmar coup. It's actually a paper that has been co-written with my research assistant Dia Jiang, who is not here, but that was also never the plan that she would be here, but let me still acknowledge that she's my co-author. And this paper has actually been accepted and is going to be published in an edited volume called Myanmar's Political and Humanitarian Crises, and it will be published in Canberra by the ANU Press. If anybody is interested, I have here a copy of the paper. Since it has not been published, you can find it online. Okay, so the topic is from cautious foes to nervous friends. So let me first maybe introduce myself. My name is Kristina Kironska. I am from Slovakia, and I work at a university in the Czech Republic at the Palacký University as a senior researcher. At the same time, I'm also one of the co-directors of a think tank called the Central European Institute of Asian Studies, and I'm also currently serving as the chair of Amnesty International Slovakia. So why am I going to talk about Myanmar? So I've done research, I lived in Myanmar, and I also worked for an NGO in Myanmar in the years 2015 and 2016 for almost 2 years. So this said, like, I do a lot of research on Myanmar, but also on Taiwan, marginally also on China, and I usually focus on human rights, elections, and foreign affairs. Oops. This way. Okay, so now about China-Myanmar. So let me give you a historic overview of the relationship. So Burma was the first non-communist country to recognize the People's Republic of China back in 1949. Then following that, over the next decade, the relationship was nervously friendly and at times even hostile. So from time to time there were even some protests. Then in 1988, the relationship between China and Burma, as was the old name of Myanmar, it warmed. And China became the military junta's closest ally, supporting it economically and also diplomatically. With the Myanmar's, I call it a top-down political transition to quasi-civilian rule, the relationship for a brief moment kind of soured, which we could see by the cancellation of Chinese-funded projects in Myanmar, and then also with Myanmar's expansion of its diplomatic profile and talking to all these other countries. Then cooperation was again revived under the Belt and Road Initiative, actually during Aung San Suu Kyi's administration. And then again there was a slight change with the Rohingya crisis, where China refused to condemn Myanmar, so it again was on Myanmar's side. So this, what I'm presenting today, is a continuation of my previous paper, in which I analyzed the relationship of Myanmar and China. And in that paper, I claimed that it went from Myanmar being aligned with China through Myanmar hedging on the side of the United States to Myanmar actually employing a double hedging strategy with two great powers. So hedging with the US against China on the economic issues, while at the same time hedging against the US with China on the human rights issues. So this paper has been published by the Journal of Burma Studies. I have here a copy if you're interested, but it can also be accessed online as it is open access. So now let's focus on what happened after the coup. What was China's reaction right after the coup versus what happened later on? So in the very beginning, China was ambiguous. It did not really favor the Tamado, which is the Burmese name for the military. And it was also not favorable towards the protest movement or the pro-democracy movement. However, over the long time, remaining neutral is not really an option, because China would be perceived as weak or undecisive, not reliable, and so on and so on. So as time passed, China was edging increasingly closer to recognizing Myanmar's military regime. And the main question in this article is why? Why did China pick this side? It had a pretty good relationship with the Aung San Suu Kyi administration previously. So as I mentioned in the beginning, the article has been co-written with my research assistant, Dia Zhang, and we have employed qualitative analysis, process tracing, but then also a quantitative aspect, which is the game theory. The game theory helps explain the why that was asked in the previous slide, why China changed from a seemingly neutral stance right after the coup to later on moving towards the Tamado. Obviously the model is a simplified version, but it still gives us some insights. And the model can actually be applied also to other countries. So before the coup, the Chinese foreign minister, he actually a month before, he made a visit to Myanmar as the first foreign minister invited after the elections, because there were elections in November 2020. And this basically confirmed the importance attached to Myanmar's neighbor, to China. And also it showed that China is supporting the NLD government, which is the Aung San Suu Kyi government. So it's quite puzzling how China's stance later changed. So after the coup, which happened on the 1st of February 2021, when other countries raised serious concern and employed sanctions, China simply took note of the situation. And basically didn't go much further. It only relied on its status as the permanent member of the UNSC to pass a statement calling for the release of Aung San Suu Kyi as others, but it did like in this grouping, not by itself. It's also very interesting to look at Chinese media reports. So we looked with my co-author, we looked at state-run media. And China's initial reservations were also reflected in the Chinese media. So for example, in Xinhua or People's Daily, their reporting was consistent in both in English and Chinese. We looked at both versions. But what we found was that the situation was addressed as a cabinet reshuffle and completely avoiding the word coup. And why is this important to look at newspapers as Xinhua and People's Daily? Well, because it's directly controlled and monitored by the CCP, and the tone and reporting directly reflect the government's attitude. Then we also looked at other types of media, the local media, which are slightly freer, so the Southern Weekly and Beijing News. These are not directly owned by the CCP. And these newspapers directly referred to the military takeover as a coup. So we thought this was quite puzzling that one type of newspapers avoids the term, the other type uses the term. And then Baidu Baike, which is something like Wikipedia, they actually had a full article on the coup, calling it 2.1 Myanmar coup. So and then we thought about the difference between the state media and the local media. And we have to realize one thing, that the state media caters, well, shows the government stance and caters to foreign audiences, while the local media caters to Chinese audiences. So there was a kind of a dual agenda. Domestically, the long-term objective is to maintain power, and reporting on the undemocratic misery of some other countries actually strengthens the government's legitimacy by people thinking, oh, we actually have it quite good here. But then internationally, the tone was much more reserved, and that was to optimize the international leverage. This analysis can be found in an article that we published at The Diplomat. I'm not going to go much deeper into this. So China's image in Myanmar has been damaged for quite a long time. So during the military rule, that's very obvious because China provided economic assistance, diplomatic assistance, and so on. It's interesting to know that mistrust of China also runs deep among the armed forces. So it's not like the armed forces really trust China. And then it's very interesting, I think I mentioned it already, that during the NLD, which is the Aung San Suu Kyi government, there was actually much broader cooperation with the Chinese than during the military. But because the Aung San Suu Kyi government was more reliable in many ways, so it was easy to cooperate with them. Well, still, Chinese projects were still under attack, mostly because of some environmental issues and so on. So right after the coup, China was actually being accused of involvement in the coup, and there were lots of rumors running on the internet. People were saying that they saw Chinese airplanes, that they saw technical stuff coming to help, that there were Chinese soldiers in the streets. Of course, these were all rumors, and some fabricated pictures were running on the internet. Facebook was flooded with all kinds of like anti-China messages. It even went so far as to say, don't buy Chinese onions and